Good morning, creative warriors. Welcome to the Warrior's Pen, episode 5. Let's see. Today, let's give it a little housekeeping stuff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this video. If you get something out of it, if you find that you learned something or you're reminded of something, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe and share with someone who might want to be able to learn something, someone who's embarking on a creative journey, and in this case, a writing journey, and can learn something from this. And let's get into it. So, episode 5, season 1. Get some coffee. Coffee is a life-saving liquid. It saves other people's lives. Season 1, episode 5 is every scene is combat. So, what does that mean? Most scenes are weak for a reason. Nothing is fighting. Although this has a very much urban fantasy focus, thriller, action. Basically, in any kind of genre, you have to have some kind of conflict, right? So you might have your characters talking, describing, reflecting, but there's no conflict. And conflict, it's the essence of the story. You have to have some conflict. Every scene is combat. If there's no opposition, if there's no friction, then there's no story. Then you're just having basically train of thoughts and the character just kind of ruminating, thinking about what's on their mind. So every scene is combat. And if you start thinking like that, it starts to influence your writing for the better. This is really, really important. Let's see. So we're going to go, as before, we're blending our warrior philosophy with our writing discipline. So we'll be using warrior examples from the past and blending it with writing discipline from the past and the present. So in ancient Rome, the Roman legions, when they advanced, we're using our warrior philosophy, right? They didn't wander the battlefield. You didn't see the legions going in every direction, right? They moved with a certain purpose. That's our target. That's where we're going. And they moved as one. They didn't move like, Romulus is over there and Caesar's over here and Julius is over there. Everyone was together and everyone moved together. They had an objective, they had a formation, and there was pressure, right? They were going with the motive in mind, right? When samurai met, the duel wasn't chaos. It wasn't like, and I know a lot of us who grew up watching, martial arts movies and Japanese movies, it wasn't utter chaos. It was strategy, and it was a strategy that was under tension. Under tension, not under attention. Under tension, a certain strategy. So they measured Mai, which is the distance. They had a certain timing, and they looked for the weakness. It wasn't just rushing in. I mean, you're wielding a blade that could end your life, that could end someone else's life. You're going to be cautious. You're going to be measured. You're going to be careful about how you do this as a samurai. So there was distance, there was timing, and they were looking for a weakness. Combat, at least in this context, because in a larger scale it could be, but combat is not noise. It's controlled intent, right? So when you're writing, I want you to take this on and put it to the same thing. Your scenes require that same structure, right? It's controlled intent. So every scene has to answer 3 questions. Who wants something? Who or what opposes them? And what's going to change because of this struggle? I don't remember exactly where I read it, but it's like every character should want something, even if it's a glass of water, right? So if you can't answer those 3 questions clearly, that scene is filler. Who wants something? Who or what opposes them? And what changes because of the struggle? You need to be able to answer those questions in every scene of your story. So if not, it's filler, and if it's filler, it's going to kill the momentum of the story. And I'm going to use a quick Anime example, when you watch anime, those of us who are young enough to watch anime, there are filler episodes. These are episodes that don't really have much to do with the story, and they're basically just there to kind of create some continuity, but nothing is really happening in that episode. They're called filler episodes, and you can kind of skip them and not miss the story. Same thing with a scene. If it doesn't have the conflict, if there's not anyone who wants something, if you can't tell who or what is opposing them, and if nothing changes because of this struggle, then it's a filler and you're killing the momentum of the story. It's slowing it down to a crawl. So let's discuss the application. Okay. So the structure that you need is one, you have an objective. You have an objective, it's a story. Your protagonist enters the scene with an intent, not a vague emotion, not a background reflection, intent, right? Like remember that we talked about the Legionnaires heading to their target with an objective. For example, they need to extract information, or they need to escape danger, convince an ally, or hide a secret. If there's no objective, there's no conflict, there's no battle. You need that objective. The objective is essential for this. Two, you have to have opposition, right? This is where the conflict comes in, because it's not just the character by himself, although there are some stories, I guess, that can work that way, but there has to be an opposition. So the opposition, you don't need swords, although in some of my stories there are swords, but you don't require swords. You need friction. You need something, the protagonist needs something to be against, right? So it could be another character, which is usually the most normal thing. It could also be time pressure. Something's got to get done in a certain amount of time, or a bomb goes off, or he loses an ally, or the building explodes. Whatever it could be, it's time pressure, right? It could be internal doubt. It could be second guessing themselves, things like that, and that can create a serious challenge. Or it could be conflicting values. But it has to be something that resists your protagonist. And if your scene doesn't have much resistance, if there's not much resistance there, it's like having a march, those legionnaires marching, and they're not going towards an enemy. They're just marching for the sake of marching. It has to be an objective. Okay? Then, and this is really important, we're still talking about the structure, right? There has to be an escalation, a twist, something that's going to ratchet up the stakes, right? So the conflict has to intensify. This is 3, escalation. So the first one was, let me just go real quick, objective, you have an objective. 2, you need to have an opposition, because the opposition is really, really important. 3, you need escalation. Conflict has to intensify. Information gets complicated. Maybe the power shifts, the stakes go up. And these are things that you have to do as a writer, as an author. You have to be able to, these are your tools. If the scene ends exactly where it began, you've written movement without consequence. Nothing's happened. If you're going to end exactly where you started, nothing has happened. So I want you to internalize that and realize that this is important. And then the last part of the structure is the outcome, right? You either have to have a victory. Remember, this is a scene, and in a scene it encapsulates almost the novel, right? You can think of the scene as each scene as like a small book in a sense, so a small story. Every scene is an example of a small story. There's either a victory in that scene, there's a defeat in that scene. You can have partial success, right? Victory ended, kind of mixed. But something has to change. It can't remain the same. So if every scene is conflict, combat, every scene is combat, combat leaves marks. Same way your scenes should do the same thing. So combat leaves marks, your scenes need to leave a mark. All right. And let's get to, I want to add a little bit of something else to this episode, some mental discipline. Okay, because this one is not easy, so it's going to be a little longer. Okay, so I'm going to give you some hard truths, but just accept them in the spirit that I'm giving them to you, because it's to help your writing. Writers usually avoid conflict because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in our lives, and it's uncomfortable in stories. But your job as a writer, as an author, is to make trouble, to cause trouble. So you can't avoid it. But most writers avoid conflict because it's uncomfortable. You have to sit with that discomfort. Okay. Sometimes you want your characters to agree. That's gonna make it might make for a pleasant story, but it's gonna make for a boring story. A lot of the time, not always. Depends on the context, right? Many times writers like to soften dialogue. If you see yourself at any of these things, take a good look at yourself and what's happening, and then analyze it and see where you could adjust and adapt to make your stories more have combat, have conflict. Okay. So you might soften your dialogue. You want to protect your characters. I've been guilty of this because we don't want to hurt our characters, but sometimes we have to make life really hard. If you protect your characters from the conflict, from the difficulty, from all that trouble that's coming, you weaken your story. Let me say it again. You protect your characters, you weaken the story. So, a worthy protagonist requires a worthy resistance. The more your character goes through trouble, the more he has to get through, the more your readers will be able to identify and resonate with it. It's really important. You don't have pressure, your character has no pressure, there's no growth. You need the pressure to have the growth. It's very important. And then if you don't have combat, they don't go through the combat, and you're in this sense, we're talking about the combat of the story. And there's no transformation, they don't grow. There's nothing. If there's no combat, there's no transformation. You need both. To get the transformation, you gotta have the combat. So, take a scene that you're writing. I'm gonna give you a little exercise and audit it. Take your last chapter, whatever work in progress you may make, and take your last chapter. And for each scene, write what's the objective, what's the opposition, what's the escalation, what's the outcome. If any of those are missing, rewrite the formation, strengthen your enemy, and sharpen the objective. Okay, that's really important. And I'm going to close with this. Okay, this is really I want to wrap it up with this. Every scene is combat. Remember that. When you're writing, every scene is combat. It's not chaos. It's not noise. Think of those two samurai meeting each other. It's a strategic tension, and they advance with intent. Raise the resistance, leave marks, okay? Train daily and forge better stories, all right? And I'll try and see if I can get more. It's our summer break, so I'll try and see if I can get more of these out for you to learn and review and kind of get some ideas. Check out our Patreon is in the description. So if you want to join Patreon and kind of see these things happening live as I rewrite my stories, and you can see the changes and the robustifications, check out our Patreon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Warriors Pen. It helps the channel grow. And we're trying to get to 1,000 members. So share the word, get it out there. And thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments below. If there's any topic you have questions about, leave a comment below and I'll see if I can get to it and answer it. Or any questions you may have, leave in the comments below. Thank you so much. Forge those better stories. That's what we're here for. Have a great rest of your day.